Hello everyone, welcome to Informatica Support Videos. This is Akshaya Srinati Kripa from Informatica GCS. In today's video, we will be learning on IICS File List Option to read multiple files of the same format. The agenda in this meeting would be IICS File List Option, Rules and Guidelines to be noted, Manually created file list commands, using file list in flat file connection, a quick demo, and a few reference articles. File list in IICS. Flat file connection supports file list as source, using which multiple files of exactly the same format can be read in a single mapping task. This feature is also called indirect file read mode. A file list is basically a file that contains the names and directories of each source file that you want to use in a mapping. For example, you might want to use a file list if your organization collects data for multiple locations that you want to process through the same mapping. Customer data might be present in 3 different files based on the location. In this case, instead of making use of 3 different mappings to process the data from 3 different source files, you can make use of file list option to read the data in a single mapping. And the point to be noted here is that all the 3 files should be of the exact same format. You can configure a source object such as a lookup transformation or source transformation to read the file list. You also have the option to write the source file name to each target row. This is called currently processed file name. When you run a mapping that uses a file list, the task reads rows of data from the different source files in the file list. Rules and guidelines to be noted. Each file in the file list must use the user-defined code page that is configured in the connection. It would be common to all the files that we will be referring in the file list. Each file in the list must share the same file properties as configured in the connection. If you do not specify a path for a file, the task assumes that the file is in the same directory as the file list. Each path must be local to the secure agent. Please note that data synchronization task does not have this feature. This can be configured only with a mapping task. If a file in the generated file list does not contain all the fields in the sample file, data integration sets the record values for the missing fields to null. If a file in the file list contains fields that are not in the sample file, data integration ignores the extra fields. This file list option can be made use of in 2 ways. You can either manually create the file list or you can make use of file list commands. Manually created file list. To create a file list manually, create the list in a text editor and save it as a text file. Place the text file in a directory that is local to the secure agent. When you create the file list, enter one file name or one file path and file name on each line. Data integration extracts the field names from the first file in the list, which means it would be used as the sample file for generating the field names. What you see here is a valid Windows file list. You can add n number of files which are of the same format. File list commands. You can use a valid DOS or Unix command, batch file, or shell script to generate a list of source files for a mapping. Data integration reads each file in the list when the task runs. Use a command to generate a file list when the list of source files changes often or when you want to generate a file list based on specific condition. For example, you can use a command to generate a file list from all files in a directory or based on file names. A few pointers to be noted here are: you must enter Windows commands that use parameters such as /b in the batch file. You must enter fully qualified file path in each command, batch file, and shell script. You cannot use inout parameter for the file list command. Here, the sample file list command that is shown is cdrive path and then salessource.bat. The script that is present inside this bat file would look something like this: echo cd the directory path, and it is selecting all the files of this specific format. Using file list in flat file connection. To use a file list in source transformation, create the text file, batch file, or shell script that creates the file list. Then configure the source transformation to use the file list. The first step would be to create the text file, batch file, or shell script that creates the file list and place it locally to the secure agent. In the Mapping Designer, select the Source Transformation, Source tab, Flat File Connection. In the Source Type field, to use a manually created file list, select File List, and in the Object field, select the text file that contains the list of files which you would like to read, basically the file list. To use a file list that is generated from a command, select source type as command, and in the sample object field, select the sample file from which data integration extracts the source fields. In the command field, enter the command that you use to generate the file list. For example, paths.sh. Here, paths.sh would include the script to generate the file list. Note that in the previous case where we are creating the file list manually, the first file present in the file list would be used to extract the source fields. You also have the option to write the source file name to each target row. To do this, click the Fields tab and enable the Add Currently Processed File Name field option. The currently processed file name field will be added to the Fields tab. Now, let me show you a quick demo on how you can use file list feature to read multiple files using IICS. As you can see, I have three different files here: customers_uk.dat, customers_us.dat, and customers_india.dat. Though the file structure in all these files is the same, the files are categorized into three different files based on the customer location. Now, to read all these three files in a single mapping, you can make use of file list option. To use a file list by manually creating the file list, you can create a new text document and include the paths of these three files that you are looking to read like this, and save this text file. Please note that the first file that you are including in the file list will be used for the retrieval of field names. Now, in IICS console, under Data Integration, click on New, Mappings, Mapping. Under Source Transformation, select the flat file connection. Under Source Type, ensure that you select the type as file list. Now, click on Select and select the file list that we had manually created. File list.txt. As I mentioned earlier, the first file that we had mentioned in the file list would be used for the retrieval of the source fields. As you can see here, it lists the contents present in the first file name. Now I'm configuring the target file to be created at runtime. Now let us save and validate the mapping. The mapping is valid. Now let me run the mapping. As you can see, the mapping has now completed successfully and it has processed 6 rows in total, 2 from each of the 3 files that we had selected in the file list. The target file that we had created includes the data from all the 3 source files that was provided in the file list. Similarly, if you are looking to create the file list based on a command instead of manually creating the file list, under source option, you can select command, select the object which is the sample source file and provide the command and do the further processing. I hope the demo was useful and you got an idea of how you can make use of file list feature to read multiple files using IICS flat file access. For more information, you can always refer to our Informatica knowledge base portal. You can also have a check on our online help documentation file lists section. We would love to hear back from you. For any reviews or feedback, please write to us on supportvideos@informatica.com. You can also tweet us on InfoSupport. Thanks everyone. Bye.